Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into an ancient mystery that seriously blurs the line between myth and reality. We're talking about the chilling 5,000-year-old legend of Ashwatthama. This is the story of how a literal divine hero from ancient India was transformed into a doomed, tragic immortal. You know, if you've ever sat around thinking immortality would be the ultimate gift, well, this story is about to completely flip that perspective on its head. To really grasp the gravity of this, we've got to start with a deeply unsettling question. Is it actually possible that a cursed warrior from the epic Mahabharata war is still walking among us today? Now, I know what you're thinking. It sounds like pure fiction, right? But the local folklore and the modern-day reported sightings surrounding this mystery are just so intensely woven into the fabric of modern India. It's kind of like a mystery that simply refuses to die, much like the warrior himself. Think about this for a second. Over 5,000 years have passed since the Great War of Kurukshetra ended. The legendary Pandavas, they departed for heaven. Lord Krishna left his mortal body. The age of Kali Yuga has officially arrived. But while all those monumental figures left this world millennia ago, local legends adamantly insist that one single solitary warrior remains physically trapped on Earth. His name is Ashwatthama, and he's supposedly out there wandering right now, reduced to a grotesque, immortal outcast. And honestly, what's truly fascinating here is the modern trail of evidence. We aren't just talking about an old story confined to some dusty ancient texts. There are eerie, super consistent sightings reported across all these distinct locations. For instance, priests at the Asirgarh fort in Madhya Pradesh actually claim they find fresh flowers on their Shiva shrine every single morning. Then you have people living near the Narmada River reporting encounters with this incredibly tall, distressed man who recounts vivid, first-hand stories of the Mahabharata war before just vanishing. There are even wild tales of a deformed man emerging from remote forests, begging for oil and turmeric to soothe this agonizing bleeding wound on his forehead. Okay, so to really understand this chilling mystery, we've got to look back at his origins. Ashwatthama was absolutely no ordinary mortal. He was the son of the legendary royal teacher Dronacharya. Born after his parents' intense prayers to Lord Shiva, he actually possessed a literal fraction of Shiva's divine essence. Legend says when he was born, he cried with the mighty sound of a horse, which is actually how he got the name Ashwatthama. But here is the craziest part. He was born with a divine gem, a mani, embedded directly into his forehead. This gem was a real game changer. It made him nearly invincible on the battlefield, totally protecting him from hunger, fatigue, disease, and even weapons. He grew up learning the ultimate arts of warfare right alongside the great hero Arjuna, literally mastering the most devastating cosmic weapons you can imagine. But despite his divine birth and these incredible martial skills, the guy had a massive fatal flaw. He was fiercely loyal to his father, sure, but he also harbored this deep-seated arrogance and a constantly simmering jealousy of Arjuna. And it was exactly this dark, volatile mixture of blinding loyalty and totally unchecked ego that set the stage for a truly tragic downfall. The escalation of this tragedy is just incredibly rapid. Let's look at how it all went down. On the 15th day of the Great War, the Pandavas realized something terrifying. They couldn't defeat Ashwatthama's father, Drona, in fair combat. So, what did they do? The usually righteous Yudhisthira told a deceitful half-lie. He loudly proclaimed that Ashwatthama was dead, but then whispered that he actually meant an elephant named Ashwatthama. Hearing only that first part, a completely devastated Drona dropped his weapons and was immediately beheaded. When Ashwatthama found out that flat-out deceit was used to kill his beloved father, his mind just completely snapped. He was utterly consumed by a totally vengeful madness. Consumed by this intense desire to avenge his father's humiliation, Ashwatthama completely shattered the ancient, sacred rules of war. Under the cover of darkness, he allied with Kripacharya and Kritavarma, and they actually infiltrated the sleeping Pandava camp. In this absolutely horrifying rampage, he slaughtered the commanders who killed his father. But it gets worse. In his blinding rage, he murdered the 5 young, sleeping children of Draupadi, tragically mistaking them for the Pandava brothers in the dark. So a father's death was brutally avenged with the blood of completely innocent children. Of course, when the Pandavas discovered the slaughter, an enraged Bhima and Arjuna hunted Ashwatthama down to a sage's ashram. Facing certain death, a totally panicked Ashwatthama unleashed the Brahmastra. Guys, this is the ultimate world-destroying weapon. Arjuna fired his own to counter it. Now, the collision of these two weapons would have literally ended the world, so they were strictly commanded to retract them. Arjuna obeyed, but Ashwatthama? Well, he had only been taught how to fire the weapon, not how to call it back. So in a final act of supreme malice, he redirected this catastrophic energy straight into the womb of Arjuna's daughter-in-law, Uttara, specifically aiming to wipe out the unborn heir, Parikshit. It was considered the ultimate, unforgivable sin, destroying an unborn innocent. And this brings us right to the absolute emotional climax of the whole story. Lord Krishna stepped in and miraculously saved the unborn child. But then, he turned his attention to Ashwathama to deliver a chilling, truly terrifying judgment. He looked right at the fallen warrior and declared that his punishment would be far, far worse than a simple execution. He told him, "You will beg for death, but death will not find you."
Krishna's curse was just absolute agony. First, he brutally tore that protective divine gem right out of Ashwathama's skull. He then decreed that the gaping wound left behind would never, ever heal. It would forever ooze pus and blood. Stripped of all his former glory and his invincibility, Ashwathama was condemned to wander the harshest landscapes imaginable, forests, mountains, and deserts, completely alone. He'd become the ultimate outcast, carrying the literal stench of disease, and be entirely despised by humanity.
Krishna specifically declared that he would wander with this agonizing affliction for a minimum of 3,000 years. Now, let's do the math on that real quick. The era of Kali Yuga began way back in 3102 BCE. So, that terrifying minimum sentence of 3,000 years, it's technically expired. Which begs the question, is he free? Well, the local legends vehemently argue that his punishment is seemingly continuing to this very day.
So the really crucial takeaway here is how his eternal life is entirely unique. See, in Hindu scriptures, there are 7 Chiranjeevis, which means immortal beings. But while figures like Lord Hanuman and sage Vyasa received their immortality as this beautiful divine blessing for their virtue, Ashwathama's endless existence is a gruesome, totally inescapable prison. It's honestly the ultimate proof that living forever is absolutely not always a gift. Sometimes it's the worst thing that could happen.
But why is he still trapped here after all this time? Well, many profound thinkers actually believe that our current era, Kali Yuga, an age defined by deceit, moral decay, and unchecked anger, is practically just an extension of Ashwathama's own cursed mindset. The era literally matches his frequency. And that's exactly why everyday villagers and priests still claim to encounter a towering, wounded figure in the dead of night, desperately begging for turmeric and oil to try and cool a wound that is simply destined never to close.
When we really take a step back and look at his incredibly dark legacy, we uncover 3 deeply profound truths. First off, possessing immense knowledge, like, say, mastering the Brahmastra, is utterly destructive if you don't have the wisdom to control it. Second, a single unchecked moment of blinding rage can literally forge a prison that you have to live in forever. And third, immortality is for sure the ultimate curse if you're forced to watch everyone you ever loved turn to dust, while you just remain behind in agony.
Now, believe it or not, there actually is a sliver of light in this incredibly dark tale. Ancient texts do offer a tiny glimmer of hope for our tragic figure. The Puranas suggest that at the very end of Kali Yuga, the final incarnation, known as the Kalki avatar, will arrive, and it's said that Kalki will finally heal Ashwathama's 5,000-year-old wound, ending his massive penance and granting him that ultimate liberation he so desperately craves. His soul will finally be allowed to merge back with Lord Shiva.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative thought. Ashwathama really represents the severe danger of blind obedience, the toxicity of revenge, and having immense power without a conscience. So maybe the real question isn't just whether he still physically roams the remote forests of India today. Maybe the real question is this: the next time you let vengeance completely override your wisdom, the next time you hold on to a grudge that just poisons your peace, are you awakening the cursed Ashwathama hiding within your own mind? Take a moment to reflect on that. Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating legend with me today. Until next time, stay curious.